everybody. You're so close to lunch. We're almost there. This is just one more session until then. And this is the one session that we've done every year at EIQ, the edge of the inbox. So I want to bring a couple of my lovely speakers up here with me, Hannah Methvin and Elliot Ross. It is like a talk show. I will not be peppering you with questions. I don't have a gavel either, which is a little disappointing. But I'm really excited to speak to you guys today about what's really amazing that's happening right now in the inbox. And the first time we did this, I got to say, this is the most amazing year to make email. And the second year that I got to do it, that we did it as Brightwave, I got to say, this is the two most amazing years to make email. And now in the third year, I can definitely say that it's been the three best years to make email. Because what we can do in the inbox is expanding. We can have more amazing experiences for our customers and just do more creatively and obviously with data and segmentation. So we're going to talk a little bit later about bringing web experiences into the inbox. Hannah's going to talk about that. Elliot's going to talk about bringing social-like experiences into the inbox. But I want to talk first about bringing voice into the inbox, specifically voice-enabled speakers and other devices that are going to read your email. And how does that affect your brand, and how does that affect your sales, ultimately? So I actually have a prop with me that has been hidden this whole time. Ta-da, I have a little Alexa here. So I want to talk first about kind of what's going on. Oh, this is me. By the way, I work at Brightwave. I look at emails all day long as the creative director there. And you can tweet me. And of course, you can always tweet at Brightwave as well. But first, I want to talk about the current state. What are the devices, and what can they actually do? Because there's a lot of variety, and these things are actually changing all the time. Then I'd like to talk about how you can make an email sound really great. And we've created a sample email, and we're going to listen to it. We're going to actually go to my inbox and listen to it live. Two different ways. Once just a regular old email coded with live text, as we should do, and another time with a little hack that we have developed. And then last, I want to just leave you with a few questions, because really it's very unknown what's going to happen next. But here's a few things to get us all thinking as a collective community and group. So where we're at. Right now, these are what good emails look like. And this is just a fabric of stuff from my inbox. Things that I got from really good emails, emails that we made, things that I've squirreled away. And they all have some things in common. And this is a lot of what Matt talked about earlier. There's great visual storytelling. They're using photography in really great ways. The layout keeps you moving down the page. And of course, yes, they have some live text and images, and those are balanced. But this is where we are today. It's a pretty awesome place to be, and we're really elevating what can happen in the inbox. But there's one tiny problem that's kind of creeping up on us. In 2017, more than half of Americans were using some kind of voice assistant. And in 2018, this is Pew Research from the end of 2018, those numbers are way more. Considering that there are 300 million-ish people in the United States, a huge percentage of the population is using some kind of voice-assisted device. So whether it's a smart speaker like Alexa or Google Home, whether it's just your phone, or whether it's your car. And we think this last one, the car, is something that could be really, really important for email in particular. This quote is something that I really love. Voice assistants are popular because they are instinctive and intuitive. You know exactly what to do. You can just talk to them. They're pervasive. They can literally be everywhere, especially if you have an Apple Watch on your wrist. And they're accessible. And it's this last point, accessibility, that I think is really important. It was certainly our entree into thinking about voice, specifically our client, United Healthcare, where there are lots of older folks reading the email. We really got deep into accessibility. And of course, it's a hot topic these days. I really, really love this graphic because it shows that when you're optimizing and being more accessible in your designs, in your code, in your email sends, it's not just about reaching disabled people. Everybody has some kind of difficulty at some point. Whether you're a new parent and your hands are full with a child, and so you want to use a voice device, or whether you're actually using a screen reader because you can't see for some reason. So I think this is a really interesting way to show accessibility, and I stole this graphic from Logan Baird, who is an awesome speaker. And he was really talking about compassion and accessibility and how we owe that to our audience, and that's the way we should make emails. But really, it's this driver situation that I think is really interesting. Most people say they want to use a voice assistant because they want to interact with the device, but they can't use their hands. So it's in this moment that I think people actually want to listen to their email. If you've ever listened to your email on a device right now as it is, it's kind of boring. It's kind of tedious. Like reading or listening to your inbox is not that exciting, certainly not as exciting as looking at it. But if you are captive in your car, that might be a different story. And in fact, at CES this year, Google and Amazon announced that they're bringing a car-specific device to the market in 2019. So I think this could be the tipping point for people actually wanting to use their voice and use sound to interact with their inbox. And that could be pretty cool. So these are the 3 devices that we maybe have interacted with or maybe love or don't love. But really, what can they do right now with email? So starting on the right, Siri. She's had the capability to read email in a very high level. So she can just read the subject line, tell you when you have new emails, tell you what the subject line and send time are. And that's pretty much all she can do, and she's been able to do that for some years. Google Home. Actually, this is a little frustrating because I would hope that because Google knows everything about me and knows everything in my Gmail account, in my calendar, that there'd be an awesome integration with Google Home. But it's really not that simple. You can use a third-party app to get your email on your Google Home device, but right now it's really not that great. Really, it's Alexa that we want to talk about. Amazon Alexa, Echo Dot, which is right here on the stage. In December, they got an update where now you can read, reply, delete, right from Alexa with your inbox. You just have to hook up your account. It's a pretty simple thing to do. So let's do a little experiment, a slightly terrifying experiment, because this is actually my inbox. I'm like, please no one email me in the last 12 minutes, because that would be that would be too bad. But we're going to go ahead and look at what Alexa can do. She can read HTML emails, she can read table-based emails, she can read, reply, archive, or delete. And there's really no need to say she's doing that all the time. She won't read alt text, and she won't take actions. This is something that's really important because as marketers, that's what we want people to do. We want people to do something from their email. But that's not going to be possible currently with this functionality. You can't start a new email either. You can't remember something and be like, oh crap, email my mom that I forgot to do something. So you really can't do that yet either. Again, this is probably going to be rapidly changing. So here's what I did. I created a fake company. It's a fake travel company, because if you know me, you know that I feel very passionately about travel. It's called Wanderlust Travel, and I created an email. This is totally uncondoned by Doug the Pug, but Doug the Pug is my mascot of choice. Love him, and he travels all over the world and takes amazing pictures. And I've created this email that has all those hallmarks of a really good email that we talked about earlier. There's great immersive photography. It keeps you moving down the page. There's live text. It's a really engaging email, of course, with Doug the Pug. Oh, and it looks good on mobile, too, of course. So this is a great email. But what does it sound like? So here we go. Experiment start. Hey, Alexa, read my email.
For Laura, from the last 24 hours, you have 2 unread emails. One marked important. The first important email is from Wanderlust Travel Deals Test 1. What would you like to do? Read, reply, delete, archive, or next?
Read.
Shop, follow, learn, always follow your heart, find you happy place, fresh air and cool breezes.
That's my email.
What would you like to do?
Next.
Next email. From Wanderlust Travel Deals Test 2. What would you like to do?
Read.
Need a break from life, Laura? Imagine yourself wandering the streets in a new city, or breathing in some crisp mountain air. Wanderlust Travel can help you find your happy place. Seriously, we've curated some sweet deals for you, and they're approved by our mascot, Doug the Pug.
Yes.
Log into wanderlust.com to see your personal list.
That's awesome.
What would you like to do?
stop. Alexa, stop. See if she does nothing. Yay, we did it. So what we did there is just create a really simple hack where we're putting a text box at the top of the email. So Alexa is going to read that part first. And really, what this does is make writing really important again. And that is something that's very exciting to me. I'm a recovering journalist. And of course, I deal in email now, and I deal in the visual world, where content is still king, of course. But sometimes writing doesn't take center stage. And really what we're doing is writing in a different way. We're writing to be heard. We're writing for radio. So in this case, short sentences, fragments, totally okay. Really, we want this to be something that you read aloud and it sounds like a conversation you would have with a friend. We're using action verbs, but we're sprinkling in some great adjectives to really help you understand what those images are in the email. You know, if we're trying to be funny and use wordplay, often without images, that's not going to work. So don't even go there, even though it's hard to restrain yourself. And we want to refer to the brand more often. This is something that, you know, instinctually you wouldn't do, but if you don't have that brand you know, identity on the page, you're going to need that. And what's more, you probably want to give a URL. Because one of the big problems that I was mentioning before is that, you know, you can't take an action when you're listening. But if you give them a URL that's super easy to remember, perhaps they'll go take an action later. So yes, we're providing a hidden block of text in the beginning of the email. It's written for radio. It's pretty simple. This works best with optimized image-based email. So you know, you might want to reserve this hack for those emails where you really don't have a lot of copy and you know, you need to get a point across. And we are going to put up this little snippet of code on brightwave.com/resources in the next few weeks, so you can get this hack if you go check out our blog as well. And the credit really goes to Jake Anspach, who is our brilliant head of development, who came up with this hack and helped me out. And this is actually his Alexa, too, so I totally messed it up. He'll have to deal with that later. But wanted to leave you, you know, with a couple of just simple best practices. You know, copy and tone are more important than ever when you're thinking about voice. Emoji are read out loud, so think about them with syntax. I was testing out all different emails, and the ones that had emoji in the subject line were like total nonsense. It was very entertaining, actually, and funny. I do recommend doing it. Bring voice into your email testing process. This is something that we're certainly doing, and it's really interesting to add that layer in and just see what your emails sound like, and then use our hack and write for radio. So all that being said, really, this is a new emerging idea in the email world. So what could possibly be next? It's really fun to think about. And one thing that I think is really interesting and important is that these are open source platforms. So maybe someone in this room will come along and develop some really cool skills for email, for Amazon or for Google platforms. And maybe these will be like the cool new email service providers that we should be optimizing for. That would be really awesome. As I mentioned, you can't really take actions you know, using voice, but it's only one small step to say that we would be connected to the Internet of Things. And I know Kristen's going to talk about this later in the email programs of tomorrow, but you know, if I got an email that said you're out of toilet paper, and I could say, oh crap, Alexa, add toilet paper to my cart. No pun intended. That would be really awesome, and I think we're only one small step away from that, and so that's a really exciting possibility. And then last but not least, maybe a little more far-fetched, but what if we could actually have voice files? So we could control how our emails actually sound. You know, with an MP3 file or whatever. That would be really cool. So it's not Alexa's robot voice. We can actually you know, put some of our brand into the sound. That would be really awesome as well. So just some things to think about. Obviously, I think this is going to be changing and adapting as we go. But you know, we are the people who can affect it and optimize our emails for sound. So thank you.
Cool. Cheers, Laura.
It's off.
Yeah, I was in a meeting a while ago with some people doing some stuff with an Alexa, and every time someone mentioned the word Alexa, the damn thing went off. So it's impressive that you managed to do that, saying the word so many times.
It's muted, I promise. I promise.
I see. Cool. So my notes are on my phone. I'm not being rude. I am British, so that does come naturally. Okay, cool. So I'm going to talk about making email in a social world. The reason I want to talk about this, it's not necessarily a hack. There's no code involved or anything like that. But the reason I wanted to talk about this was email has been around a long time, right? I've been doing email for probably too long, like probably about 15 years now. And what happened when we were starting is we kind of basically took what we did in DM, right? And DM had been going for a long time, like 40 years, all the way back to Mad Men. So we took all these ideas out of DM and basically made them happen on a screen. And we were sending these emails that are kind of 5 paragraphs long with like a signature at the bottom, all this kind of stuff. And I don't think that works anymore, so I want to talk about how we could approach that. So I'm Elliot Ross. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a product called Taxi for Email, which is a product that helps teams make better email campaigns. I'm also on social, so I am Elliot on Twitter and Email Elliot on Instagram. Figured you can't really talk about social without having to mention your own, right? So what I want to talk about is this idea of mobile email. So we've dealt a lot with mobile email, right? We're kind of at a place now. It's been around for 5, almost 10 years. And we've got our head around media queries and what to do with the CSS and the various hacks, and Gmail's improved their support and all this kind of stuff, right? So we're in a good place in terms of code. But what we don't think about as often when it comes to mobile is the overall experience. And I think that comes down to a few things. One of them is that our approach to social has kind of been a little defensive, and we thought, oh, well, the social guys are going to get all the budget. It's actually email versus social, and it isn't. It's email and social and all these other channels as well. I want to talk about that. Just quickly, though, how many people have a challenge when it comes to too much content in their email campaigns? Is that, quick show of hands, interesting? I call it like the church newsletter effect. Like everyone wants to, have their little thing. Oh, I've got to get this in, and I'm selling these, and you end up with this huge email, right? I think that's a big challenge, and I was thinking about ways we could come up against that. So, I think now when we talk about things like mobile, instead of thinking about the inbox on the phone, we should actually think about the whole phone as being an inbox, because actually we've got our email app. Everyone gets one of those. If you use Android, it's a bit more of a challenge, but there we go. So you get an email thing, but then also you've got Twitter, you've got Facebook, you've got, not sure what that is, Instagram, Facebook Messenger, Slack, so you can actually take your work with you all hours, which is, I'm sure you'll agree, is great. WhatsApp as well, even things like Tinder. I have my doorbell goes off on my phone, which is a great help here because my home is 2,000 miles away. But nevertheless, the email inbox is competing against all this kind of stuff. And people are jumping through all these different apps, and they're thinking in the same mindset. So I was thinking what we should do is we should consider how people interact with things like Instagram or with Twitter. They're kind of basically grazing a feed, either saving time or wasting time or whatever. And if you think about, they're then going to jump into the email and they're going to see 5 paragraphs of copy, they're just not going to interact with it. So we need to be thinking about our content in social and mobile terms. So we need to be writing stuff that's really short and concise and gets to the point. Cool. Just checking I've got everything. The other thing just on there, before I get into the Seth Godin quote of the day, is this isn't all just millennials, right? Not all millennials, hashtag, do the same thing, but also this isn't just for millennials. I think it's quite an easy sort of trap to get stuck into, to think, oh, well, the millennials, they're doing this now. They've all got Tinder on their phone or whatever. We talk about segmentation. We can't really put a third of the population in just one box and say they all behave the same way. And likewise, it's not just millennials using Tinder, I think. I don't know. So actually, when it comes down to it, we've got this attention challenge. I think this is really interesting. This is a quote from Seth Godin a few years ago now, but it's really true. And I think it was David said before, these ideas come round and round. The 2 scarce elements of our economy are trust and attention. I think that's never been more true. trust, we've got GDPR. I'm really not going to talk about GDPR. But we have, obviously, an attention challenge. Gary Vaynerchuk will tell you that, but with more swear words, so I won't bother quoting him. He did also say this, which I thought was quite interesting. Yes, we do all wish that. So I thought some things that could help get us on that way. So full disclosure, I plundered some stuff off really good emails, so shout to those guys. So I think we should start to approach our content, both in imagery and text, in a kind of social context, right? So that's short copy, easy to digest. From an accessibility standpoint, that's also really good for people who have learning challenges and all that kind of stuff, so it's a really good base level to work with. So I think this email is starting to get there. It's quite a long email. It's a sort of newsletter, as we like to call them these days, but there's still a good delineation between lots of different types of content. So you can scroll through that, and you can see, oh, this isn't all just one big mesh of content. There's clear spaces between different types and different sort of articles and stories. So yeah, they've got quotes in there. They've got some nice imagery with short bits of text. Even when they've got a quote or a sort of paragraph that's quite long, that's sort of 3 or 4 sentences there. But it is still quite easy to digest. There's lots of space around it. There's a clear call to action. I think that's really interesting, and that's a kind of design technique that we should start to pull through, and we still see people doing that. Is Pretty Little Thing, are they in the States, or they're a big thing in the UK? I think these guys are really cool. So they're a sort of trendy fashion shop, I suppose, online. But they have a real social feel to their emails, and I think they're one of these brands that came from Instagram to begin with. So you can see in their visual treatment the kind of stuff that's on the right there, one line or one word, really Instagram-style photography, very easy to see what's going on in that email. There's probably, 15, 20 words in there, really, really short, very easy and concise, and straight to the point. I think another way to think about this stuff that's kind of interesting is it's almost something that the social guys would pay a huge amount of money for. Imagine if you went to the social guys and said, well, what we can do is we can make a stream of all of our content and we can send it to all of our customers, and they won't see anyone else's content. They won't get distracted by other stuff. All they'll see is our stuff. Like, they will bite your hand off for that. So maybe work with the social guys, see what content they're making. Often they're doing cool stuff with video and GIFs and all this kind of stuff. And think about how we can pull it into email. Not only to create an experience that customers will engage with, but also to make the experience or the content process for us a lot easier. So this is an email for Pizza Express, fairly standard business challenge, right? A pizza restaurant. But you can see the content is very kind of social focused and talks a lot to that kind of grazing mentality. You can kind of snack through that. That's a really horrendous pun, sorry. And get the gist of what's going on very quickly. There's a stat. I was trying to find a sort of proper attribution to this, so I didn't actually put it in the slides because I couldn't really find it. But there's a stat where you have 8 seconds of attention every time you email someone, and 8 seconds isn't long. So you can probably read all of that content in about 8 seconds. That's probably pushing it, to be honest. But anything much more than that is going to be a big challenge for you. And lastly, I think this is my last little bit. And I put out a couple of emails that are really, really short that I thought were really interesting. So this is an email from Amazon, and it has your gift card. So massive Amazon logo, here's your gift card, here's how much it is, press the button. That's the kind of content that, you wouldn't tweet this, but in terms of that content hierarchy, that looks like a tweet. So maybe when we're approaching our content in email, a tweet is a good place to start. So if you do have that church newsletter problem, I suppose, maybe go back to people and say, right, if you were going to put this in a tweet, what would you do? You've got an image and you've got 140 characters, and then give me that content. Maybe that might help them focus their message. It's a very political way to say that. And lastly, I thought this email was great. This is from Tumblr. It's actually from a few years ago now. But this is literally 5 words, which is amazing. I've never seen an email with that few, that little content without it being a mistake. So show me some fantastic blogs, go. That's amazing. That's a great level of content. That's probably not even enough content to go on social. So that's me. I just wanted to kind of pull out a couple of ideas, really. A couple other little bits that I think that support that kind of talk to doing stuff better in social as well. It really comes down to doing good email quality all the way through, right? So we have this idea of, well, we'll just make a good email, we'll do it in Photoshop, we'll save out a big JPEG and off we go. These days, that's a big challenge, not only for accessibility, but especially for things like mobile. So in London, I'm not sure, anyone been to London and tried to use the Wi-Fi on the tube, for example? Probably a bit of a reach, but so we have Wi-Fi on the tube, the subway, the MARTA, I suppose, and the Wi-Fi works in the station, but not on the train. So what happens is the train pulls into the station. You spend about 5 seconds trying to get your inbox or connect, and then get your inbox, and then download stuff. And then by the time the doors are closing, you just about load something, and then it goes, and you're in a tunnel, and you've lost the Wi-Fi. And people are going to be reading our emails in that context. So we need to make sure that when people open their email, they can still see the content, they can still understand it. And if they can't download the images, you've still got to make sure your message gets across. And I think that's a big challenge for us. So this idea of images being blocked, it's less about the email clients blocking it, and it's more about just people's situation causing it to be difficult. And I think this is something we need to be really cognizant about, because we kind of stick to our best practices, and they're very rigid, but we need to move with them. I think that's a good example. And also, I think something that we really need to take on board is it's okay if email doesn't look the same everywhere. So one of the conceits of responsive is that you do move the content and make your email look different in different email clients. But we also have this idea of, Outlook's a bit of a pain to code for. I'm not going to talk about Outlook, but if you want to make stuff that looks good in Outlook and then make sure you have consistency, you've basically got Outlook as your base level, which isn't very good. Where you've got increasingly 40, 50, 60% of the audience viewing on very capable mobile phones or cell phones, we can make a really good experience for those guys, and we can make an adequate experience for the 5-10% who are still using Outlook. So we can have a kind of progressive enhancement approach to our content, and I think that's never been more true, not only for email clients, but generally for the email audience. So really that's me. And I just wanted to end with a little snazzy pun, really. So maybe think about taking approaches from social, think about how we can take those in 2019 into the inbox. And do it for the gram or do it for the inbox. Thank you. Oh, sorry, this is Hannah.
Hi, everybody. So I'm going to be talking to you all about how you can bring the website into a user's inbox. And what do I mean when I say that? Well, it's really creating a seamless experience for your subscribers where they don't have to go and log into your website. They don't have to remember a password. They can just do that action right within the inbox and then move on to the next thing. So this is me, Hannah Methvin. I'm an email marketing manager at Total Wine & More. We're not doing anything like this right now at Total Wine, but I'm hoping to work on that in the future. So just starting off with a little anecdote, I got this email from H&M about a month and a half ago for an item that I had purchased online. And it looked originally like a pretty standard review request email, right? Like you see the stars, you assume that when you touch or click on one of the stars, it's going to bring you to an external landing page where you'll submit a review from there. But I was actually really pleasantly surprised because I touched one of the stars on my iPhone, and it just lit up. And I could change the star rating right there in the email. And then I scrolled down, and I saw that there was a place for me to write a comment. There was also radio buttons for me to expand on the size and fit of the item. And then this is just a really quick demo of what the email looked like when I was playing with it. And this is actually the first time that I've ever submitted a review for an H&M item, sadly. I've shopped there for years. But it was all because this was so easy to use and just such a cool experience for me to encounter in the inbox. So despite being really excited about this, I've actually done something really similar to this, but just a little bit different in the implementation. So this was an email that I built when I worked at my previous company called WeddingWire. And it's a HTML form incorporated into email to let the user submit their availability for certain calendar dates within their account. This is the iOS on iPhone 8 and then Gmail version on desktop. And the really cool thing about this that is different than the H&M email is that we built this in-house. We didn't use a third-party company to do this, which I could see when I was inspecting the H&M email code that they were using a third-party company. And we saw really great engagement with this email, and I think it was all because the user had such a seamless experience, and they didn't have to log in, they didn't have to go look at a whole bunch of calendar dates in order to get to this one date and check off, yes, I'm available, no, I'm not. And I just wanted to give a shout out to an old coworker of mine whose email was actually the inspiration and launching off point for mine. She had built a review collection email actually for WeddingWire when I had worked there. And this gave me an incredible launching point for building my email. So just a brief explanation of if you wanted to do this yourself, how would you do it? So once you know what the goal of your email is, what the action is that you want your subscriber to take in the inbox, you would start building out an HTML form. And the form method, there's a bunch of different types of HTML form methods, but the only one that's currently supported in email is a get method. And what this does is it pushes all of the information collected in your inputs into the URL, and then you would have an intermediary external landing page that would take all of that information from the URL, parse it, and pass it into your database. This intermediary page really is the most important part of this whole process. Otherwise, this wouldn't be possible to do within the inbox. And then ideally, within a matter of milliseconds, the user doesn't even see that intermediary page. They're just passed directly to a confirmation page or an error page, depending on whether they've successfully submitted the form or if they're missing information, for instance. This is just a quick view of where forms and email are supported. And you'll see that in Gmail and Yahoo, it's a little bit limited because they don't support styling, which is why right now when you see people doing things like this, you'll see a pretty standard non-styled form. I mean, the H&M email was a great example of that. It was fairly basic because you have to build another fallback for something like that. So a lot of the times it's just easier to have one simple form and then a fallback for those that don't support the form at all. In order to target these inboxes, you do a couple of different things. Email client targeting itself, you can do things like that with Gmail, specifically target if they're opening in Gmail. You can also target via domain, so if they're an @Gmail address, @Yahoo, @Mac.com, and then also based on screen size. That'll let you know whether they're opening on mobile or whether they're opening on their desktop. So something really important that I mentioned in the steps on how to do this is the confirmation page. And I think this is something that can really get overlooked, but it's super important in my opinion for the entire seamless experience that your subscriber is going to have. So this on the left is an example of what I saw when I originally submitted my review to H&M via the inbox. And I was a little bit confused because I just saw a bunch of other items that I could review. There was no text saying, thanks for submitting your review, thanks for giving us your feedback. It wasn't until I tried to submit the review again that they gave me an error page saying, you've already reviewed this item, make sure to review other ones. As opposed to when I built my email at WeddingWire, we had a very clear confirmation page, great, thank you for updating your availability calendar. Or if you were missing information, we had an error page that told you to go back and try again. So you might be asking yourself, with all of this complicated build, why would I want to do this myself? H&M is using a third-party company, and you submitted your review for them, and it seems to be working out well for them. And I definitely would encourage you, if you're interested in doing something like this for your company, looking into a third party for it. the value is still there regardless of whether you're doing this yourself. You're still providing your subscriber with a really seamless experience. It's low friction, it's high utility, and it's really, most importantly, beneficial to them, regardless of whether you do it yourself or not. But I do think that doing it yourself is really what's kind of pushing the boundaries of email here. It's why it is the edge of the inbox. We can, if we take into our own hands technology that already exists, maybe say, you know, yeah, that company can do that for me, but I really want to learn how to do it myself. It's definitely not something that everyone needs to do, but if you're curious about it, I really encourage you to look into it. Oops, went back. And also, it's just really cool. As someone who has done this before, it's really, really awesome to be able to spend so much time working on it, you're troubleshooting it, you're coding it, and then the first time that the form submission does work, and you can see, you know all of the work that went into the background of making that function, it's just really awesome. And I also think that encouraging yourself or your team to learn how to do something like this, that's where we end up with innovation in the future, right? If we tell ourselves, yeah, this is possible, maybe we get excited about something else that's possible. We start looking into other possibilities that are that we could do in the inbox. So I've just listed here, in my opinion, the pros and cons of building this in-house. If you see these cons as really big blockers for you, I highly encourage you to look into doing this with a third party. Again, it's still a great value for your subscriber, and not everyone, unfortunately, just has the dev resources for something like this. But if you don't see these cons as big blockers, I encourage you to at least look into trying this, because, as I said, it's cool, it's great for your subscribers, and it's great for you. So what else can we do with forms and email? Honestly, a lot. It's only limited to what information you want to collect and how you want to collect it. So you could do a review submission, similar to what H&M did, updating your calendar like I had built, completing an online transaction, taking a survey, updating email preferences. These are all possible just based on how you submit your inputs on the page and how you style your form. And this is just a really important piece of information that I think didn't necessarily click for me until I thought about this for quite a lot. Using an HTML form in email increases your click-over conversion rate to 100%. So essentially what it's doing is it's shortening your conversion funnel. Every single click that you get from a form in email becomes a conversion for you. So just think about right now all of the clicks that you're getting in your email programs, in your campaigns, in your automations, and what if you could turn every single one of those into a conversion? I think that would increase all of our email campaign numbers quite a lot. Just some final takeaways, keeping it short because I know it's almost lunch. Forms and email are great for your subscribers. As I said, it's a low friction, high utility action that they can take right there in the inbox. They don't have to log in. They don't have to remember one of 5 million passwords that they already know. They just have to take that action there and then move on to the next thing. It's super simple, super easy. It's also great for your conversion rates. As I said before, you're shortening your conversion funnel and you're making it easier for your subscriber to take that action. And then finally, whether you do it yourself like I did or you use a third party like H&M did, I just encourage you to try it. It's really, really, really a valuable piece of technology for your subscribers to be able to just take that action and really lower the friction and help them have a great experience in the inbox. So thanks. If you have questions, this is my email, and I'm also available to talk anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Those were all awesome ideas to get us thinking. So in summary, bring voice into your inbox experiences. Bring a visual, social approach to your inbox experiences. bring form submissions and other cool inbox things into your inbox as well. And go forth and make great email, and also eat great lunch. Thank you.